2020 is here and there are a ton of games to enjoy already, but how about ones that will blow you away? Hi folks, I'm Maxion Game Killer, and today we're gonna showcase some of the most anticipated survival titles for PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC that are slated or expected to launch before the end of the year, and even further. Doom Eternal finally launches on March 20th, and to ring the new year, Bethesda has issued a new trailer. For what it's worth, Doom Eternal could very well wind up being Bethesda's biggest game of the year. That is because, like pretty much everything associated with Doom, the game brings the conflict between hell and humanity to Earth at the highest pedigree of ripping and tearing there ever was. As I said before, Doom Eternal is an absolute blast, and is looking even better by the trailer highlighting more stakes and details of the game's war specifically.
Saving your people will not bring you peace, only make the burden you carry worse.
For millennia we have survived, made others sacrifice in the name of our prosperity. Who are you, a human, to defy our traditions?
Who would seek to stop this. You are nothing but a usurper, a false idol.
The only thing they fear is you.
I got you.
Who are you? What are you doing?
Name's Carlos, and I'm saving.
Following on from last year's Resident Evil 2 and only a few months away from launch, Capcom just released another trailer for Resident Evil 3 Remake. Check it out. Resident Evil 3 is available to pre-order now and will release on PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on April 3rd, 2020. Considering it is roughly 90% down, there will be no delay. Just for the record, Resident Evil 3 will also include an additional multiplayer game called Project Resistance, due out possibly at the same time. Holy.
Freaks. No chance of fighting our way out of the city. Why is she here? She's unreliable.
It's me he's after. I'll buy you some time.
Hey, wait! Wait, Jill! What happened? Come in!
If you're unfamiliar with Plan 8, it is described as an exosuit MMO, though Paralabus developers describes Plan 8 as a shooter. It is still kinda difficult to confine the game to a single genre. I think this project aims to create a unique shooter title with MMO and survival gameplay elements that combines open-world MMO elements with action-packed gameplay and, well, a lot of realistic graphics. It's quite something. Though no date for Plan 8 has been announced by Paralabus as of yet, it might be safe to say that this one title we will be hearing about in a long time. Plan 8 is currently in development for both PC and consoles. It's a lot of expectations, but it is expected for sometime in 2020. Check it out. yesterday, developers Bad Pixel announced on January 17th the long-awaited testing for their upcoming Dead Side will begin with the game's first stage. The Dead Side has been in works for almost 2, maybe 3 years now, and it has hardcore multiplayer shooter with survival elements, post-apocalypse open world with real weapons, transport, craft, and construction mechanics in it. It is being developed using Unreal Engine 4 and planned to release on Steam pretty soon. This one's got me hyped for recently, and it's called Dead Matter. It is a sandbox survival in which you fight to survive in this zombie-packed post-apocalyptic world that kind of works best with whatever playstyle fits you best. So when apparently you settle down and defend your home with an expansive crafting and barricading system where you can cultivate and live off the land or branch out, explore, scavenge, whatever vehicles, weapons, and food as you may find, alone or with your friends. I came to notice developers recently made it to 19 individuals working on the game, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I say we're excited to see their work in the coming months. I couldn't really say much about it though at this point, not because there ain't any, but because it's all technical talk through latest updates, so I'll probably only bore either one of us. What I can tell you for sure is that Dead Matter is currently in development, due for a closed beta in March 2020, and it's shaping up to be a pretty interesting game, so keep it in mind. Sons of the Forest is a demon hunting game, which is apparently the sequel to the survival game, The Forest. Though only a single trailer has been released yet, and hence we cannot talk about what the gameplay is, but I think we can at least say it's kind of a game where the player has to try not to die. That is, it would be a survival game. Yeah. The original, The Forest, was an open-world survival game released in 2018 after a whopping 4 years of early access, and now, well, it's getting a sequel. It's hard to tell now much from a single trailer, but I get the feeling that the Sons of the Forest will be more narrative-focused. That's it. There is no word of a release date yet, but given our experience with the first game, I'd say it's one that's actually worth to keep an eye out for. That's it, the game is expected for sometime in 2020. Rust, the popular multiplayer survival that began life 6 years ago as the clone of an Arma 2 mod, will finally make its way to consoles in 2020. For those of you unfamiliar with it, I'll try to explain how Rust works as simple as possible. You're brought into the Rust world, naked, wielding only 3 items, a map, a rock, and a torch. With these you must farm materials and build yourself a little fortress where you can gather more resources, and craft more until you eventually fall victim to another user. So, if you're interested in giving this a go, but you're stuck on your PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, Rust is officially headed to those consoles in 2020. Stay tuned.
It's been 15 years since the fall. The city is a corpse, and we are the worms. We burrow in it.
Techland's back to deliver the sequel to the zombie survival series, and we're gonna see it in Dying Light 2 pretty soon. Now, the original 2015 title rocked some unique features such as open-ended parkour, a day and night cycle, and more you could imagine in a survival horror back then. Yet this installment is set roughly 15 years after the events of the original game and depicts a dark age where humanity struggles to rebuild civilization. You wanna know, the game is set to launch sometime in the spring, later on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, so make sure to stay tuned for updates. But though a release date is yet to be confirmed, if you want to secure a copy of it, you should know, no pre-order bonuses have yet been announced for Dying Light 2. The standard edition, currently the only edition on offer, includes the game as well as any pre-order bonuses that could get announced.
And these choices we take to survive will create the world to come. You know the drill. Get to the nearest safe house and wait until dawn. Good night, and good luck.
How would you rate our kiss from last night?
Neil Druckmann, creative director for The Last of Us 2, has stated that Naughty Dog will continue to make great games if fans continue being amazing. I mean, Naughty Dog is responsible for some of the most innovative and critically acclaimed video games of all time. The company's breakout hit was the Crash Bandicoot franchise, the PlayStation 1, and since then the company began working on more realistic games, obviously, with both Uncharted and The Last of Us getting praise for their narrative arcs as well as their interesting gameplay. Many critics consider both series to contain some of the greatest games of all time, and The Last of Us 2 is greatly anticipated. Last of Us 2 is a third-person horror game with an emphasis on stealth as players fight to survive against those infected, yet very little is known about the game's storyline. But Naughty Dog has stated that it wants Ellie to be an incredibly complicated character throughout the game, is what I can tell you. That said, The Last of Us 2 releases for PlayStation 4 on May 29th, 2020.
Tommy, I have to finish it.
You have no idea what you're walking into.
What are you doing?
You don't know how large that group is, how armed.
I don't care. You can't stop this.
It's been a couple of months since Skydance Interactive announced their new VR game, The Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners, on the way this month. Apparently the game is set to hit VR units on January 23rd, but before that they decided to give us a taste of things to come. Well, much as you could have suspected, the game throws you into situations where you have to make tough decisions, and once those choices are made, you're stuck with them for the rest of the game. Now, in case you missed the previous entries, just go ahead and check them out, who cares. Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners hits Oculus Rift, Rift S, Quest, and HTC Vive on January 23rd, and a PSVR version is also expected for sometime later in this spring.
Left to tell us what to do. So tell me, tourist. Who are you?
In partnership with Nvidia, developers Next Studios announced earlier in 2019 their upcoming survival title Saint of Planet, which is a sci-fi third-person survival shooter offering a mixed PvE and PvP gameplay I'd say clearly inspired by Alex of Division. They even came up with a cinematic trailer for the occasion in addition to the former gameplay trailer, and I figure the main selling point of it is the game's ability for 50 players to take part in a single match, alongside a 1,000 strong horde of some kind of twisted zombies, I think. And its combat will range between taking on other players while keeping tabs on these other things. But as for when this might be, Tencent hasn't provided an exact release date or even a release window, only suggesting the year 2020 at the earliest. Platform-wise, PC is all but guaranteed, with consoles probably coming at a later date.
Ignition sequence starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off.
While Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege lies among Ubisoft's latest multiplayer hits, details remain scarce on Rainbow Six Quarantine, with only a brief teaser trailer promising some familiar combat and gadgetry to Siege. So in a few interviews, recently it was described with co-op replayability and tension as core to gameplay. That translates the allure of Rainbow Six Siege's highs into a player versus AI setup, including 21 familiar operators at launch. As you might have guessed, infected outbreak enemies also return, and there is more. Bottom line is, Rainbow Six Quarantine is expected to hit Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and PC schedule for sometime later in 2020. You can also sign up for a beta right now.
I'll cover you.
He's going into stasis.
Contact! Head to the extraction point!
Since Left 4 Dead 2 has been released back in 2009, co-op zombie shoot-'em-up fans happen to be hoping to get more, only to find out the studio behind the game has answered all these prayers together with the announcement of a spiritual successor to the series with a new entry called Back 4 Blood. Now, as a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead as opposed to a sequel, Turtle Rock has stated it's a whole new IP that will be a co-op zombie FPS of a similar vein, so while it's not really a Left 4 3, it'll probably have a lot of similar elements. In the studio's own words, we are going back to our roots and at the same time innovating on them. That said, the earliest we can expect to see Back 4 Blood is later in 2020, with a 2021 release being much more likely.
It all happened so fast.
Cody, get behind me!
One announcement hot off the press conference from Sony's China Joy press conference back then was a reveal of this game called Undying. Now, Undying is an indie survival in which players take control of a mother who's infected, so her goal now is to find somewhere safe for her kid to live before she turns. Yeah, it's heavy. In it, of course, limited resources must be managed in order to slow down her infection, while also making sure they both don't survive and things like that. So yeah, like I said, Undying is coming to PlayStation 4 in addition to its previously announced PC version, which is due out via Steam Early Access in Q1 2020, and a release date for the final launch also is yet to be announced.
I must protect Cody. Whatever it takes.
And lastly, we get to this one called Outlet Z, which is an FPP game in the survival open-world single-player era and takes place in the heart of this place, in which as the main character you have to find civilization and find out why you really found yourself in this position that you are right now. That could make this interesting for once at least. And for the game, the studio chose a rather trivial plot, somewhat reminiscent of The Forest, in which the protagonist crashes on a plane in a mountainous area in apparently Poland and tries to survive finding civilization while struggling in the winds, rain showers and also wild animals. Check it out, this one's coming out sometime in 2020. Hey, if you like what you see here, please give us a thumbs up, go ahead and share this stuff with whom you think is interested in, and if you'd like to see more, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That will be the best way to see them. See you next time.